Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing me the honor to speak to you at this Democratic convention. It's great to see so many familiar faces across the crowd, and I look forward to meeting as many of you as I can for the rest of this weekend. My name is Christopher Constant, and I launched my campaign for Congress in February, and I've been running since last year. I grew up in the 1970s, raised by a single mother, and we were poor but not lacking. My family showed me an abundance of love, patience, and understanding, and my upbringing allowed me to overcome many challenges. Imagine yourself living in a place in between LA and San Francisco, being a young gay man where people were dying around you. And in that time, your government was ignoring you and saying, it's okay, you can die.
Preach it.
I learned at that time that government has a more important role than to ignore the suffering and the sick and those who are in need. And I was surrounded by bullies, but at the same time, I was surrounded by people who cared and people who supported me and helped me to become who I am standing here in front of you today. And that is the first LGBT candidate to ever stand for elected office at a statewide level in Alaska. I decided to run because despite our many challenges and obstacles before us, I see more opportunities for Alaska. We can do better.
Yes, we can.
I decided to run because I'm convinced that we can realize our potential by bringing our democratic values to Washington. We can win. I decided to run because my path to Congress has been paved with decades of community service, and after leading in local government during the political extremes of this pandemic, and holding accountable a lawless administration that often disrespects the basic humanities of our community, I have been tested, and I am ready to represent all of Alaska. I'm not going to stand here and recite to you my stances on our policies. As Democrats, we generally share common values. And my website will outline for you as much of the detail as you'd like to see. And I'm here to answer questions if you have more. What sets me apart is not my stance on climate change or housing or economy or rural Alaska, urban Alaska, and the things that we need in our communities. It's my ability to build bridges, get things done, and to stand strong and put up a fight when circumstances demand. I'd like to share a little bit about my thoughts on the realities of this special election we face with ranked choice voting and what's at stake. The good news is, Alaska Democrats are faced with an opportunity we haven't had in 50 years. We can win. One problem though, if we do not unite with enthusiasm and conviction, we're not going to win. As we stand here today, Sarah Palin is leading in the polls, and we've been down that road before. And we all remember how it ended with the birth of Trumpism and the radical right, who are attempting to redefine violence and terrorism as legitimate political discourse. Behind her is Nick Begich, who's using the same playbook. And then we have Al Gross. Al Gross claims to be an independent, but here's the reality. When running in 2020 for the U.S. Senate as an independent, Al Gross was backed by us and our money. Despite raising nearly $20 million, what evidence can you see that he helped to build other candidates in our party so that we could be leading forward and building that $20 million in a 2-to-1 effort of fundraising? Failed to win him a Senate seat. If money was the key to winning, he would be our senator today. This time around, Al continues to court Alaska's Democrats. Just this past week, he stated in the Anchorage Daily News that he will caucus with whichever party wins. On his Facebook page, he said he's not a liberal and he's not a Democrat. And he suggested to others that he may very likely caucus with the Republicans. Think about it. What does that mean? That means our Democratic dollars may be supporting the Donald Trump Sarah Palin platform. Here's the thing. If a candidate is vying for the support of Alaska's Democratic voters, that candidate better damn well commit to our democratic values. Anything short of that is undeserving of the precious votes and precious resources we have in Alaska, because when we unite, we can win. So what's at risk if we don't unite? Every woman's autonomy over her own body, free and fair elections, civil rights and basic human rights, my right to marry who I love, a right to a good education, and a right to fair wage for a day's work. At risk are the legacies of Elizabeth Peratrovich and John Lewis and Mother Jones, Martin Luther King, Harvey Milk, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We cannot afford to lose a century of progress. I've spent my life working for Alaskans. My net worth isn't measured in millions of dollars or cable news appearances. I can't loan myself hundreds of thousands of dollars for this campaign. Instead, my net worth is measured in thousands of hours of service to my community. So over the past 2 years, we've endured the worst. And in Anchorage, I've seen kind of the worst that you could imagine. I was threatened and harassed and disparaged. I actually endured hate speech that traveled the entire globe with my name associated to it. One day last summer, a neighbor showed me a game camera. A stranger tied to a tree in a park across the street pointed at my door. These are attempts to intimidate and push me into the shadows, but it backfired. I'm more energized than ever, and I've seen the problems facing our state and country, our villages and cities firsthand, and I'm here for it. I've spent the last 15 years working in my neighborhood, the Fairview community, the Anchorage Assembly, and on issues statewide. One thing I found is for the most of us, we share the same challenges and issues no matter if we live in Kwethluk or Anchorage, if we're from Ketchikan to Utqiagvik. Every community has its own needs, and I will be there to listen, and I will be there to fight for you. People sometimes say, my service is rooted in Anchorage, so how am I going to represent people in the southeast or the interior, the North Slope or the west, across this great land? The answer is, how you do anything is how you do everything. I will fight for Alaskans the way I fought for my neighborhood. I will fight for Alaskans the way I fought for Fairview and Anchorage. I was ready for this fight the day before Don Young passed away. And I'm ready now. I'll close with a few important takeaways, and then I'll be happy if there's any questions. I know I'm running out of time. This special election is a critical test for Democrats, and this test is about one thing: arithmetic. First, Republicans outnumber Democrats nearly 2-1. Think about that. There were nearly twice as many of them as there are us registered to their parties. That math favors them. They can afford to divide their base a number of ways and still win. But if we as Democrats dilute our base even a bit, we risk not crossing the line. If this race wasn't already complicated, here's another challenge. Our recent polling tells us that Republicans and those who consider themselves to be nonpartisan or independents are significantly more committed to voting in this election. Republicans are upward of 60% committed, independents even higher, and yet our polls show that Democrats are less than half committed to show up and cast their ballot in this special election. That's where you come in. We must energize Democrats. We must unite our base. We must seize the key to victory, which is coming together for the good of our families, for the good of Alaska, and for the good of America. We must win. And I'm here to tell you, we can win. Let's do this together.
All right.